Okay, let's get started. So thanks everyone so much for joining. We know that this school year is going to be unlike, or is already unlike any other, and we hope that Quill can be a support to your instruction in whatever teaching model you find yourself in this year. Today I'll provide an introduction to Quill, and in particular to the custom content on Quill for pre-AP English teachers. And all of this content is in service of helping your students become flexible, confident, stronger writers. So first of all, a little bit about me. My name is Sherry Lefkowitz. I'm a senior instructional coach at Quill. Before coming to Quill, I taught 11th grade English and also AP Literature at a small public high school in the Bronx, New York. And after teaching for 8 years, I moved on to the Writing Revolution, another small nonprofit devoted to writing instruction. And I was there for 3 years as Director of Certification and a faculty member. And my email is here, coaches@quill.org. If you have questions specifically about the pre-AP content or best practices for integrating Quill into pre-AP English, I am the person to reach out to, so please don't hesitate. And before we get started, I wanted to make sure you know what other support there is for you as you get started on Quill. So we're hosting several back-to-school webinars on Mondays through Thursday throughout September and actually a little bit into October. These are all free and open to everyone. This webinar for pre-AP English teachers will reoccur next Tuesday, if you want to come back. And as you can see, there are quite a few other options. I'll just highlight Quill 101 is our Getting Started webinar. And Quill 201 is our diving into data, so looking at the data reports on Quill. I won't spend much time today looking at our data reports, so if that's something you're interested in, I definitely recommend our 201 webinar. And then we also have a 301 webinar that focuses on embedding Quill in your instruction, so that's also wonderful. And also a drop-in Q&A on Mondays and Wednesdays, which is great because you can hop in, ask a question, get a live answer, and hop out. You should also know that whenever you're on Quill, you should see a little speech bubble in the bottom right of your screen, and you can chat directly there, or you can email support@quill.org, and either way, you'll be talking to our support team, and that's the place to go with any questions about setting up your account, rostering classes, maybe you're having an issue with an assignment not loading or not appearing for students. Support@quill.org will definitely be able to help you with that. And lastly, we'd love to see what you're doing with Quill. So if you could use the tag Quill in the classroom on social media, we will get to see what you are doing, and we are always very interested, especially in this time. People are being very creative, and I'm sure there are other teachers out there, other educators who would love to see how you are using Quill. And again, you have my email, coaches@quill.org. I also want to just let you know about an exciting opportunity. As part of its partnership with College Board, Quill is offering all AP, pre-AP, and Springboard teachers access to a free lifetime Quill Premium for Teachers license. And I want to just be clear that the content on Quill is and will always be free. What comes with a Quill Teacher Premium account is access to additional in-depth data reports, some downloadable reports for students and parents, and some priority technical support. So that's what comes with Quill Teacher Premium. And to activate this offer, you just need to set up your account first if you haven't already, and then email that coaches@quill.org account and just let them know whether you teach AP, pre-AP, or Springboard. So here's our agenda for today's webinar. I'm going to introduce you to Quill and the custom content for pre-AP English 1 and 2. And I'll show you how to get started with an account on Quill, how to create and assign packs of activities. I'll show you what else is available to you on Quill, and we'll end with a Q&A. And you can also see our goals here for the webinar. Some quick norms for using Zoom today. Please use the Q&A for questions. I won't as readily see questions in the chat, so just use that Q&A as best you can. And please don't hesitate to type out a question there at any point during the webinar. I will come to those questions before the end of the webinar. And please do keep in mind, it is just me here, so I will definitely do my best to get to all the questions. But if I don't, you have those emails, you have support@coaches@quill.org. Please make sure to reach out and get your question answered. Or I can also follow up with you afterwards. And then you'll get an email confirming your attendance at today's webinar, as well as a link to a recording of the webinar and a list of links to anything that we discussed today. So if you hear me mention something and I don't post the link or you don't catch the link, don't worry, it will come in that follow-up email within a day or two. And lastly, I just wanted to let you know that I'll also be sending a link to the chat to a short survey on this webinar, and I'm very interested in any and all feedback. We're always looking to improve. So let's get to know you a bit and revisit that question from the chat. So the question was, what concerns do you have when it comes to the sentence writing of students entering your pre-AP English 1 or 2 class? And if you haven't gotten a chance to answer that, you feel free to do that now. It looks like we don't have anything just yet. We are a nice small group today. What I often see teachers referring to in answer to this question is issues with mastery of foundational grammar skills, capitalization, subject, verb, agreement, punctuation. Teachers often refer to a lack of variety, a lack of complexity in their student sentences. Jason, thank you, from Rutherford, New Jersey. Welcome. I'm also from Jersey. Repetitive, simple sentences, for sure. I remember students often having lots of those. And I think you'll see today that Quill can help you address some of those issues that I mentioned and the issues that Jason is bringing up. So what is Quill? Quill's mission is to help all students become strong writers and critical thinkers. And as we all know, poor writing skills are a major barrier to college and career success for our students. But the question is, how do we best help them to improve with this challenging skill? Many of us, I know myself included, struggle with teaching writing. So our solution is research-based writing instruction in a free, open source digital platform. Our content is and will always be, as I mentioned, free for all students and teachers, and our activities help students develop sentence construction and grammar skills. Now, our flagship tool, Quill Connect, that you see here, uses sentence combining to do this. And for those of you that are not familiar, sentence combining is a strategy in which students are asked to combine 2 or more simple sentences, the kind of sentences our students often write that Jason's referring to, into a single, concise, more complex sentence. And we'll show you lots of Quill Connect today. Those activities are designed to be completed in 10 to 15 minutes so that you have the freedom to use them in the way that works best for your classroom. And what's particularly special about these activities is that as students submit responses, Quill will deliver instant personalized feedback to help students revise and revise and revise again until they are writing stronger sentences. If I had to think of one word that I think of when I think of Quill, it would be feedback, and I think you'll see that today. So Quill's work is based on some fundamental concepts that we know from the research on writing instruction. And many of these are summarized in this publicly available meta-analysis of that research called Writing Next. If you're interested in this, it's easy to find if you just do a Google search for Writing Next PDF. It'll come right up. And Writing Next found that sentence combining was effective for teaching grammar and syntax, and actually more effective than traditional grammar instruction. Why? Well, sentence combining helps students practice in an organic way and internalize a wide variety of grammatical rules and structures. Steve Graham, who was the lead author of Writing Next, is a fan of Quill, and he had this to say about it. Quill's transformational sentence combining tools address literacy in a unique and valuable way, filling a gap in educational technology, and we would tend to agree. And Quill's work is also informed by the research of Bruce Sadler at the University of Maryland. Dr. Sadler's done a lot of research and writing on sentence combining. And he's also written this great book for teachers on the subject that we highly recommend if you're interested in more about sentence combining. So, as we know, teaching writing is hard. We can probably all acknowledge that. And that's why College Board has partnered with Quill to create this new free comprehensive offering to help students practice sentence construction skills in their writing. Teaching writing is probably always going to be hard, but our hope is that this targeted, carefully sequenced practice and key skills can make it a little bit easier for you to build your students' confidence and skills when it comes to writing. So we're going to explore all of this in detail, but I'd first like to give you a brief summary of the custom pre-AP English 1 and 2 content on Quill. So first of all, there are 2 writing skills surveys. Oh, that is a typo. I'm sorry, that should say pre-AP writing skills surveys. Let me just make sure I'm in the right webinar. Okay, that is a typo. I'm so sorry about that. So there are 2 pre-AP writing skills surveys. We do also have content for advanced placement, and that's what this is. And then those writing skills surveys will generate recommendations for your students that are aligned to the English 1 and 2 course frameworks. And then you'll also have the option to assign additional practice on those same skills if you feel your students need that. And there's one more piece to this offering, but I'm going to hold off on showing you that just yet. And it's important that you know that at all times, you have the control over what and how much your students practice, which we'll show you as well today. So how can you find all this exciting new content? You're going to start in your pre-AP classroom. So at this point, I'm going to go to a pre-AP classroom demo account to show you exactly where to go. And I have that open here. So I'm in my pre-AP English 1 classroom, and at the top here you have course and your different units and these blue links. And you'll see that this last one on the right here says Quill Resources. So if you click that, it's going to take you to what we call the pre-AP landing page on Quill, which looks like this. Now, the URL for this page is quill.org/pre-AP. So you might want to note that URL down because you can always type that in and go directly there if you don't want to go through pre-AP Classroom. I also want to show you there is another way to get to this page later in the presentation. I'll show you another way to get here. And this page has an overview of the custom pre-AP English content on Quill and links to all of it. So if we scroll down, the first thing we'll see are those 2 pre-AP writing skill surveys that I mentioned. So let's talk a little bit about these 2 surveys. Let me go back to our slides here. So there are 2 skill surveys. Each covers 5 of the 10 key grammar skills from the English 1 and 2 course frameworks. And here are some of those, here are all of those skills, those 10 key skills. And each survey is going to help you identify which of these skills your students need to practice most. Each survey has 12 items and is designed to take about 15 to 20 minutes, depending, of course, on your students. And let's go back to that page that we were on and take a look at Writing Skills Survey 1. So we're going to click View here. And as you can see, Survey 1 addresses the basics of sentence patterns. So subject, verb, and pronoun antecedent agreement, compound subjects, objects, and predicates, and compound and complex sentences. And on this page, which is what we call the activity pack for this survey, you'll also see an estimated time here, so you can see 20 minutes. And you'll also see some other information that I'll talk about more when we look at another activity pack. And all you have to do to assign the survey is just click Select Pack once you have an account on Quill. But I will walk you through that as well in a little bit later. First, I want you to see the actual survey. So anytime you're on Quill, whenever you see this preview button next to an activity, that will let you see the activity exactly as your students will see it. So we're going to click that now, and it will bring us to the first page of the survey, which will be these directions. As we all know, students, and let's be honest, adults often, I know myself too, tend to skip past directions. And they can be pretty important, especially for the first time your student is using a survey like this on Quill. So this might be a good place to stop and review this with students. If you're in a remote situation, you might want to record yourself reviewing these directions with students. But those are here for you and for students, and they'll click Begin. And they'll be brought to the first item, which is a fill-in-the-blank grammar question. You'll see at the top, students will always have this tracker showing them how far they are in the activity. They'll also always have the option to save and exit, and they can come back and continue where they left off. They won't lose their progress. So I want you to see what a little bit what this survey is like. The first few items are these fill in the blanks, so I'm going to go through those a little bit quickly just to get to some of the sentence combining items. So my new pair of shoes is already dirty, just beyond the Great Barrier Reef, lives, launched. Again, I'm going through these quickly so you can see the next items. It's And on number 5 of the survey, you'll see students are brought to their first sentence combining item. They're told combine the sentences into one sentence, and they're given those 2 sentences, and that's it. So carpenter bees feed on plant pollen, carpenter bees make nests in wood structures, and let's say your students type in something like this: plant pollen and carpenter bees make nests in wood. So if I click submit, I'm sure you can tell that I've written a sentence here that is not the strongest sentence, right? And I've also left out some punctuation. When I click submit, I don't get any feedback. I'm brought to the next question. Now, I thought I said Quill was all about feedback. So what I want to make sure that you understand here is that our skills surveys and our diagnostics are the only tools on Quill where students don't get feedback. And that's because we want this to be a baseline. We want to see how our students doing with these tasks when they're not provided any feedback. And you'll see later in today's webinar that all of our other activities, they will provide lots of feedback. But this gives you a little sense of the first survey, the first skills survey. And then I would also like to show you our second survey. Before I do that, I want to answer a question that often comes up, which is, which survey should I start with? So sometimes teachers will think, oh, survey 1 is for pre-AP English 1, and survey 2 is for pre-AP English 2, and that is actually not the case. The two surveys cover those 10 key skills for both course frameworks, and what we generally recommend is that most teachers, you should start with this first survey, survey 1, the one that we're in right now. And why? We want to make sure that nothing is glossed over. We don't want to make any assumptions about what students know. However, that said, if you feel very confident that you have students, or maybe even a group of students, who are quite advanced in their writing skills, perhaps you might want to start them just with survey 2. And I will show you today how you can assign things to just a subset of students. But the best way to make this decision about which one to start with is to preview the surveys yourself and click through and play through and get a sense of their level of difficulty. So again, at this point, I would like to show you our second survey. Nope, not this one. Here we go. So this is the pre-AP Writing Skill Survey 2, and I want you to see how the rigor goes up a bit. So again, we have 12 items on this survey, but the very first item is already a combining item, which you can see is more difficult than those fill in the blanks. And we're also given some joining words that we're being asked to use specifically. So your students might write something like, let's see, the light bulb was an invention. It brought electricity into homes. So they might write the light bulb invention brought electricity, electricity into homes. Right? They might do something like that. They're brought to another combining item. Again, they're asked to use specific joining words. And you can see how the language in these items, the length, these are a bit more rigorous, and they're focusing on specific skills like relative clauses, etc. I just realized on the last one, I did not use one of the joining words that I was supposed to use, so that would affect my scoring on that item. But again, I just wanted to give you a sense of both of the surveys. So now you've seen both of those. And I'm going to close this one as well. We'll go back to our slides. So after students complete a skills survey, Quill will use the results to recommend up to 40 independent practice activities so that students can practice and improve where they have gaps. As students complete those practice activities, they're going to receive that feedback that I mentioned. So I'm going to go into a demo account now to show you the report that you get when your students finish taking one of the skill surveys. Something to note, we do have several classes set up in this demo account, so you might see some other content. Feel free to ask us any questions about anything that you see there. So going into that demo account, here we go. So once you have your account set up on Quill, when you log in, this is what you'll see. This is what we call the teacher dashboard. And to see the results of your students' survey, you'll click Student Reports, and then you'll click Diagnostics. You can click here or here. I always like the big button. And I just want to note here that this is not necessarily the most intuitive thing, so you might want to just really take note of this, that to get the results from the students' surveys, you'll go to Reports, Diagnostics, and then in there, you'll see a list of all the surveys or diagnostics your students have taken. I have quite a few because, again, this is that demo account. So I'm going to go to Pre-AP Writing Skills Survey 1. That's the one I want to see. I'll click View here. And I will be brought to the independent activity recommendations for my class. So you'll see my little demo class here of some pretty brilliant authors. And you can see what they are recommended based on their performance on that survey. So a few things here. Okay, so each concept that's covered on the survey has a corresponding activity pack. And so as you can see, there are 5 activity packs associated with the 5 skills on this survey. And each pack contains about 4 to 6 activities with the, Each pack contains about 4 to 6 activities, and each activity takes about 10 to 15 minutes, as I mentioned before. Each of these packs provides scaffolded sequence practice on one of those 5 skills. And something to also note is that you can assign all of these recommended activities with one click. So when you first come to this screen, all of the recommendations will be automatically checked for you. And if you want to assign all of them, all you have to do is click this green Assign Activity Packs button, and they will automatically be loaded into your student's dashboard. However, let's say that you feel like assigning all of these. Remember, each pack has 4 to 6 activities, so there's quite a lot here. If you feel like this might be a little overwhelming for your students, you can also go here and click Uncheck All, and you'll see that those little black checks now disappear. Now I still have the recommendations in blue. So this blue highlight remains, and that shows me what is recommended for each of these students, and that will never go away. So if you don't assign anything and you log out, you come back in, that blue highlight will always stay there so that you don't lose those recommendations. And again, let's say I don't want to assign everything at once. I want to start with just one pack for each student. So I'm going to check off just the first pack that's been assigned to everyone. So for most of them, it's subject-verb agreement, and Jim is the only one that didn't get that assigned. See, Pablo, this green check means Pablo's already had this assigned to him. So I'm going to go for the next one, and then like so. So once those are all checked, all I have to do is click Assign Activity Packs, and you'll see that those will turn to those green circle checks, and that means that those packs have now been assigned to students. So you have options here always on Quill to decide how much practice to assign to students. Another thing to know, sometimes teachers ask, are any recommendations assigned to them automatically? And the answer is no. You always are in charge of assigning those recommendations. Quill will make the recommendations, but it's up to you to decide when to assign them. I also just want to show you one other thing, which is up here, you can click Student Reports, and you can see how students performed on that survey, and you'll see that they're bucketed by proficiency. So I have 3 students who are in the red range, which means they're not yet proficient, they're below 59%, and I have 4 students in the yellow, nearly proficient range. And unfortunately, I have no students in that green 80% or above bucket. And I can also click into a particular student by clicking this arrow and see a pretty detailed report of how that student did on the survey, with exactly what they responded for each question and what concept was being tested. So that's a really nice report to use in a one-on-one conference with a student. I just wanted to show you that one. And again, you can always go back and click recommendations to see those recommended activity packs. So let's take a look at one of these packs. We're going to start with the compound sentences pack. And to take a look at it, all you'll do is click View Pack. And again, we're going to take a look specifically at the end or but so one activity here. And before we do that, I just want to note, as I said before, the activity pack page has a lot of good information on it. So you'll see all the activities that are in that pack. You'll also always see what students will be doing, what skills they'll be practicing, what is the theme if there is one, and what to do if students need more practice. We'll come back to this in a little bit. You'll also see that estimated time for the whole pack, any of the standards covered, and any of the concepts covered. So again, a lot of good information here when you click View on any pack on Quill. Another thing to know is when you hover over one of these names of the activities, you'll see a little summary of the specific activity in that pack. And we are going to take a look, as I said, at this one. And as we can see, this is an activity where students are choosing between 4 given conjunctions to create 9 compound sentences about that. And you can also see the grade level here. So this is aligned to the Common Core standards for 4th grade. So we'll click Preview. And like I said, Preview will always take you to the activity itself, just as students will see it. In Quill, and now we are in our Quill Connect tool. And again, Quill Connect is our sentence combining tool. Our first page will always be some directions. They're pretty short and sweet, but again, first time or even second time students do this, you might want to review these directions with them. They'll click Begin, and then students will be brought to what we call the Rules page. And the Rules page has some really nice information. It'll tell you at the top what the focus, what the skill being focused on is. It'll have a little direction about using that skill. And notice here that the language use is very student friendly. So we're joining with conjunctions, but notice the word conjunctions is not used. And that's because we want this rules page to be as accessible and helpful to students as possible. So we focus on the function of words and not so much the grammatical terminology. And that's what you'll see throughout Quill as well in the feedback that students get. And then after that little summary of the skill at hand, students will always have a model. So here they're given a you see, what are they going to see? And then you write, what are they expected to write in response to that prompt? So they have these 2 sentences, and then they're asked to combine them. And in this case, you say and then we have an explanation, a model for each of the conjunctions in this activity. So this can be a really useful page that teachers have been using for modeling with students. In remote situations, teachers have been recording themselves using this as a model, which is wonderful because students can then replay it at their leisure. So really useful page here. And then next they'll click Start Lesson, and they'll be brought to the first item. We can see here that this activity has 8 questions, and we are on the first one. That's like darkness. They go out at night. We're asked to use one of these joining words, and we're told combine into one sentence, use one of those joining words. So let's see what happens, and at this point I'm going to answer this like a student might. So that's like darkness. Let's say your student writes, but they go out at night. Now we have combined, but we've got some issues here. So let's click Get Feedback. And now we get some feedback from Quill. Revise your work, but tells that 2 ideas are opposite. Which joining word helps tell why or give a reason? So now your student is going to rethink a little bit. Okay, these ideas are not actually opposite. It's more that they like darkness. So, as a result, they go out at night. It's the reason. Okay, so your student might revise like so. We'll click Get Feedback. Now we'll be told, good work, now correct your punctuation. And notice that at this point they get a hint. And throughout Quill, you'll see these hints. So the hint says, connect 2 complete sentences with a comma and one of these words, and or but so. I used so I guess I need to use a comma. And I see in this model right here, the comma goes before so. My comma, and I'll click Get Feedback. Good work, now add a missing period. Oh, that's right, I always forget that period at the end. Get feedback, and I've done it. So now I've told that's a strong sentence. When I click next, I'll be brought to this page, which shows the 3 most popular strong answers from all the responses on Quill for this item. You'll see here that these 3 are pretty similar, but I'll show you later an item where the most popular strong answers have some variety, and that can be nice to highlight for students, that variety piece. And they'll also always have their final answer at the bottom here to compare to those strong answers. So a few things to know here. Students have up to 5 opportunities to revise and get feedback before they will be brought, if they don't get to a strong answer, they'll be brought to a multiple choice question. If they do, they'll be brought to here. Either way, students will always be shown those most popular strong answers. So they'll never leave the activity without knowing what a strong answer would have looked like. Okay, so you get a sense for that one. Okay, and I want to look at one more activity and one more of the packs that comes with the recommendations. So let's look at one of the packs that's recommended when students complete the second survey. So close this. So again, this is survey 1. I'm now going to go to, again, student reports, diagnostics, and I want to see the recommendations for that second survey. So pre-OP writing skill survey 2, I'm going to click view. And I have a smaller class here, and you can see the 5 packs here. And one of them is a positive phrases. That's the one I'd like to take a look at now to show you. And we're going to take a look at positives in the middle one, this first one. So if we hover over, we see students are being asked to combine 6 times to create sentences with a positive phrases in the middle. Something I want you to notice here, I mentioned that these packs are scaffolded and sequenced carefully. Notice the sequencing here in the appositive practice. We start with appositives in the middle. We have two activities practicing that. So that's where the appositive usually appears right after the subject of the sentence. That's the most common place for an appositive in a sentence, and it's also usually the easiest place for students to use it in a sentence. So that's where they begin. Then they have practice putting in a positive at the beginning of a sentence, quite a bit harder. And lastly, putting in a positive at the end of a sentence. So just to show you here that practice is deliberately sequenced here. Again, so let's take a look at appositives in the middle 1 and play through this a bit. Again, we'll have our directions. We'll have our rules page with our little summary of the skill and our model. And then we'll have our first item. So we have the Congo is 3,000 miles long. The Congo is a river in Africa. We're asked to combine without adding new words, and we're told to put the describing information in the middle. And notice we don't say a positive, we say describing information, using that student-friendly language. So let's say your student writes, the Congo is 3,000 miles long, and the Congo is a river in Click Get Feedback. And makes sense. So the feedback will acknowledge what the student's doing well. Now try writing your sentence in a different way. Use the hint as an example. So end is not wrong, it's just not the focus of this activity. And then I'll take a look at my hint. Extra detail about who someone is or what something is can go right after the name of the person or thing, and put commas on both sides. And I see in the example, they've put this a Puerto Rican dessert right after flan. So I'll look at this and I'll go, okay, I can put this, a river in Africa, which is the description of the Congo, right here, and I can delete this. Get feedback, update your punctuation, use the hint as an example. Oh, that's right, I forgot those commas. I'll add that around this describing phrase. Great work, now update your capitalization and ending punctuation. Oh, that's true, I forgot to capitalize Africa, and I forgot my period. That's a strong sentence, and next I'll be brought to my most popular strong answers for this item. So something to note here that I haven't mentioned yet, which is that the feedback on Quill is prioritized. So notice that the first thing I got feedback on, I had a few different errors in my sentence, but first I got feedback on my lack of use of an appositive. That's the focus of this pack. That's what I'll get feedback on first. Then Quill will give me feedback on some of those smaller issues like punctuation, spelling, etc. So something else to note there. Okay, and then at this point, I want to show you something I mentioned a little bit before, this section. What if my students need more practice? So for all of these packs, we have also created a second set of independent practice activities on the same skill, but with new content. So let's say your students work their way through all the recommendations, but you still feel that, for example, positives need some work. You can go right here and click this additional practice of positive phrases pack. And again, same skills, new content, and you can select it and assign it to students when you feel that they need that further practice. So we just wanted to make sure that there was enough practice here to make sure that your students had the practice that they need. And you can see again, by the way, that that practice is scaffolded and sequenced. Something to note here, the only way to find these additional practice packs is this way. So in the original pack, when you go to that what if my students need more practice section, that is the only way to find these. You won't be able to find them by searching on Quill. And the reason for that is we wanted to make sure that students first got the initial practice and then the additional practice. So that's a good thing to know. Okay. So I still have more to show you, but that was a lot of information. So let's take a pause here to catch our breath. I'll take a pause as well. And if any questions come up while we're taking this little break, please add them to the Q&A, and then we will continue. So I'll just take a few moments here. I'll give it about 10 more seconds in case anyone wants to type a question into the Q&A, and then we will move into our first poll. Okay, so I'm going to launch our poll, and you should see this on your screen. If you can't see it, it might be hiding behind another window. And the question is, what concerns do you have when it comes to teaching sentence level writing in your pre-AP English 1 or 2 classes? You can feel free to select as many of these that you feel apply. I'll give it one more second here for everyone to vote. Okay, so it looks like folks feel most that they are not sure where in the curriculum to teach sentence level writing. The section of this content that I haven't shown you yet, I think will answer some of those questions about where. And people have also felt that they have not found good tools to address sentence level writing. So I hope you can see already how Quill can help you with that. Thanks everyone for the poll. Let's continue. So let's do a little review at this point of what you've already seen. So the sequence here is the sequence that we recommend you use with these activities. So in terms of not being sure about when, now, September, October, now would be the time we would recommend assigning that pre-AP Writing Skills Survey 1 or potentially 2. That's going to generate those recommendations, which you would then assign, and students can start working their way through those. We also have those additional practice activities if students work through those recommendations quickly. And then there are 20 custom passage-aligned sentence combining activities. And these are the ones that I'm probably the most excited about showing you today. Each of these activities is aligned to a unique pre-AP English 1 text to give your students the opportunity to practice their sentence construction skills in the context of what they are learning in your class. It was really important to both College Board and Quill to create activities that were aligned to and reflective of the text that students are reading, since we know that writing instruction is best in the context of the reading and learning that students are doing. We also know that students benefit from writing about what they are learning. So the writing featured in these sentence combining activities models the kind of analytical thinking that we ultimately want to see in students' own writing. These activities explore 3 aspects of the text. First, there are some items on the historical and authorial context. So we want to position the text appropriately for students. Second, we have items about key elements of the plot. We want to give students enough in these items so that they're not exposed to anything that they are not already familiar with and be distracted. And third, we have items on the structure and style of the text. So for fiction, you might see items about characterization, for example. So where do these fit in? Well, we've designed at least one activity to appear in each learning cycle of all 4 instructional units of English 1, so that this sentence combining practice can easily be incorporated throughout your lessons. So again, that's 20 total activities, 5 activities per unit, and at least 1 passage-aligned quill activity in each learning cycle. These are best used after students have read the text. You don't want to have to be doing spoiler alerts, but I'll say more about that in a little bit. So let's see how to find these in pre-AP Classroom. And I'm just going to open that back up. I don't know why I closed it. Hopefully we can do this quickly for you. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me here. I should not have closed this window. So we're just going to click back into our English 1 class. I want you to imagine that you're in your first unit in English 1, okay, and you're in the second learning cycle. So first unit, second learning cycle, click this little plus, and we just finished lesson 1.5, What Happened During the Ice Storm by Jim Hainan, and we want to give students some practice that is tied to that content. So right here, we'll see Partner Resources Quill Activity. Very loud. And we'll click here, and that is going to bring us to that same pre-AP landing page we were on before, but it's going to bring us to the part of the page that focuses on this particular activity, and it will be highlighted in green. So just to show you where I am, if I scroll up, this is that same page that we were on before with the surveys, but again, it takes you to the part of that page that has the passage-aligned activity that aligns to that lesson. If we click View, will be taken to the activity pack for this activity. And all of these have one activity pack with just the one passage aligned activity in each of them. Okay, and we'll click preview here to see what this activity looks like. So first we're going to get a welcome page with those directions for Quill Connect. And next, instead of the rules page that you saw in those other Quill Connect activities, you're going to get a little synopsis of the text that the activity is based on. We'll click Start Lesson, and we'll be taken to the first item. We have 8 questions here, and as you can see, the sentences are related to the text. So this item is related to just the general kind of what is the story about, what genre is it, and let's see what happens when students answer this. So let's say your students write, what happened during the ice storm is an example of flash fiction And flash fiction is a type of very short story. I'll click Get Feedback. Revise your work. End makes sense, but there's a stronger way to join the ideas. Use the hint as an example. And I'm getting that hint again about an appositive. So I'm going to look at that hint. Perhaps I've already had that appositive practice that was recommended from the survey. And I'm going to remember, oh yes, I can put that describing information after flash fiction. So I can delete this. Oops. And just have this right after flash fiction, which is a type of very short story. I'll click Get Feedback. Update your punctuation. Always use quotation marks around the title of a short story. Oh, yeah, my teacher did say that. I forgot. Get Feedback. Update your punctuation. Use the hint as an example. Ah, I forgot those commas again. So there needs to be a comma here. Proofread your work. Always capitalize the full title of a short story. That's right. I need to capitalize this. I see I did miss that. And then that's a strong sentence. I'll click next, and here I'll be brought to those most popular strong answers. Notice here, as I mentioned before, there might be some variety that you can highlight for your students. So if I were doing this in class, I might say, hey guys, you wrote the sentence using a appositive, which is wonderful. It's a great written language structure. But notice that that's not the only way to combine these sentences. You could also combine them with which, right? You could also use what's called a relative clause. You could also do called flash fiction. So this is a great place to show students that variety and emphasize that to them. I want to skip now to the fourth item in this activity so that you can see one of the other types of items that are in here. So this is the fourth of the 8 questions. And we have the author builds tension with short sentences. Short sentences create a sense of breathlessness. I have a little breathlessness right now because I always am speaking too fast. The author builds tension. Okay, so we got that. So let's see how we could combine these. The author builds tension. So notice that these sentences are focusing a bit on author's craft, what the author is doing. And we want to model for students the kind of writing that we want to see from them. Feedback. Update your punctuation. Use the hint as an example. You can see I get a different hint here about using which and the fact that I need a comma. That's true. So I'm going to put a comma here, just like here where which is used. Oh, I've now forgotten that period again. And that's a strong sentence. And then again, I'm brought to those strong sentences, strong answers, and I can see some variety here as well. So I just wanted to show you some of the variety of item types in these passage-aligned activities. Okay. So back to our slides. So just another reminder about this, it's super important for you to know. Since these activities include details about the text and some analysis of key elements, they're best used to reinforce learning after students have read and discussed these texts in class. That is really the ideal use for them. So lastly, in terms of content on Quill that's aligned to pre-AP English, you'll also see direct links to Quill activities throughout English 1 lessons where specific grammar skills are addressed. And you might have already seen these or used these before. They've been there for quite a while. So these links that you'll see, so for example, like this one, will take students to independent practice activities that align with the writing goals of that lesson. So this is the Teacher Guide for Learning Cycle 1 in one of the units, and notice the lesson includes some discussion of subject-verb agreement. So on the side, there's this blue student practice box with links to relevant Quill activities. And if you click that link or type that URL in, it will take you right to that activity. But here's what's important to know. If you just go to this link or just give this link to students, you will have no way to track students' completion or performance on that activity. Notice that word anonymous in the link. That tells you everything you need to know. This is really one-off practice and it won't be documented. So what can you do if you want to see how students do on that activity? You can search in Quill's library for that practice instead, and I will show you that in a bit, and then you can assign it from your account and you will see that data. So before I explain creating an account on Quill, I want to strongly recommend that you and your students create free accounts on Quill. If you don't create an account and you just share those links from Pre-AP Classroom or from that anonymous link that I showed you, your students can complete the activities, but again, you won't see the recommended practice, you won't track their progress, you won't see any data reports. So you don't want to be Romeo here without an account and not having those recommendations and reports. We don't want you to miss out on this great data. And if you do try to assign something without creating an account, you will get taken to a screen that asks you to sign up or log in. And again, that's just to save you from missing out on that data. So for the sake of time today, I'm not going to show you creating an account and rostering classes, but don't worry, it's super simple. And I am going to send a link to the chat to a 3-minute video that goes through this for you. And you can also always reach out to support if you need help. So I'm going to send that to the chat right now. Okay, again, that's a very short getting started video that will show you setting up and getting your classes rostered. So once you have a Quill account, you'll have access to all of this content that I've shown you so far, and you'll also have access to all the other content on Quill. So to be clear, the content that I'm about to show you is not part of the custom content that Quill has made for College Board, but it is all available to you for free. So I want to show you where to go to find that content. So I'm going to go into our demo account here. And we're going to go to Assign Activities, and then we'll click Explore Activities. And this will bring me to a list of 3 options. So I have Assess Student Writing with a Diagnostic. So that would be if you want to use a diagnostic like the skill survey. Choose activities from our library, and then explore pre-AP and AP activities. So right now we're going to do choose activities from our library. And we can browse packs with whole class and independent practice, or with just independent practice. Either of these will bring you to what we call pre-created packs. These are packs of activities that were made by Quill team members. They're ready to go. So those can be nice to look through if you want something easy and ready. You can also go here, create your own activity pack. And if we click here, this is going to bring us to Quill's full library. There are over 600 activities and growing in this library, and you can search and filter this library in a number of ways. So you can type right into the search bar, you can filter by concept, you can filter by Common Core grade level, and then you can also filter by the tool on Quill. So Quill has 5 different tools. So far today, you've seen the skill survey, which is part of our Quill diagnostic tool. You've seen several examples of our Quill Connect or sentence combining tool. What you haven't seen yet is Quill Lessons, which is our whole class instructional tool. Quill Grammar, which are activities that address those foundational building blocks of grammar. And then Quill Proofreader, which is what it sounds like. And this is where students get a passage and they need to find the errors and revise the errors in a passage. So those are the 5 tools on Quill. And if you click one of these, you can filter your results to one of those tools. So remember earlier I said that there are those links in the lessons that will take you to an activity, those anonymous links, but you can't assign it to students and track their progress. So let's say I want to find that subject-verb agreement activity that we were looking at. So here's where I can find it. So I could type in subject-verb, and you'll see already a bunch of activities come up. We have lots of subject-verb practice, but I know that that was a grammar activity, so I'm going to filter to Quill Grammar. And now there are just 2 here, and I want to assign these to Quill Grammar activities. So I check them off. You'll see they appear here. And the way to assign them is to click Select Activities. I'm going to be asked to name the assignment. So whenever you're creating your own pack, you're going to have to create a name for it. If it's a pre-created pack, you can change the name, but the name will also be there. So let's say I call this subject-verb practice. And I know that I want to assign this to just a few students who really need this practice. So I'm going to call them Group B. I see my activities here. I can X them out if I feel like there's too much here, but I'm going to leave them. I can also add a due date if I want to help my students pace themselves. So I might do one on the 11th and then one on the 15th. Those due dates do appear on students' end, but they can also submit them after the due date. It's really just to help guide them. And then I get to choose which class I want to assign this to. So I'm going to assign this to my pre-AP English class, but again, I don't want it to all the students. It's really just Sharon and Jim that need to work on their subject-verb agreement. So I'm going to select them, and I am all set, and I just click Assign Pack to Classes. Done, success. If you click Next, You can see what you've assigned, or you can assign more activities. So I wanted to make sure you saw how to assign a pack, and that is how you do it, and also how to find the library and search the library. Okay. So to summarize what you've seen today, you saw those 2 writing skills surveys that are focusing on the skills in the pre-AP course framework. You saw the recommendations that are then aligned to those. And then you also saw those additional practice activities. And then throughout, you have those passage aligned activities where you can use these while you're teaching the text that they align to. Lastly, you saw some of Quill's extended library. You saw activities from Quill Connect and Quill Diagnostic. And we also showed you a little bit of some of those other tools, although we didn't look at those actual activities. I encourage you to explore them yourselves. And I have no doubt that you'll find a lot of resources here to support your students. So I'm going to open it up to questions. We have about 9 minutes. If you have a question that you haven't typed yet, please go ahead and do so now. And I'm also going to paste to the chat some links that were mentioned and some links that weren't mentioned that might be helpful to you as you get started using Quill. And again, go ahead and type any questions into the chat while I do that. Okay, so just to summarize what's in there, I've just sent you a link to a great getting started checklist for pre-AP teachers that will walk you through exactly the sequence that we recommend. I've also sent you an FAQ that's really comprehensive of all the pre-AP content on Quill. I've also sent you a link to the webinar series that gives you the registrations for all those webinars I mentioned at the beginning. I've also given you a link to our Teacher Center, which I'm going to show you in a moment, to our support page where you can find articles on any kind of technical issue that you might have. I've given you some information about the premium offer. And then lastly, there is a survey for today's webinar. Again, any and all feedback is welcome. Okay, so I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to take this time to show you our Teacher Center, which is a pretty amazing resource on Quill. I'm going to go back to our dashboard. And right here at the top, you'll see Teacher Center. If you click All Resources, you'll be taken to the Teacher Center. And there's a lot here to explore. So first of all, there's a whole Getting Started section, and you'll just see the first 3 articles. You can also click Show All and see everything in the Getting Started section. Lots of good stuff here, including that FAQ that I mentioned. Just gonna go back. We have some teacher stories, teachers talking about how they've used Quill in their classroom. We have some articles about the research informing Quill's work. We have some really good teacher materials in here. So this is one of my favorites that I'll show you. So this is our Quill Reports cheat sheet. I didn't have time today to show you too much about Quill's reports, but this is a great place to start if you just want to see, let's say I want to figure out which students need extra support during their next Quill activity. Well, you should check out the activity summary, which I can actually show you right now just to give you a sense of that. So if we go to our dashboard, since we have time, I figured I'll show you one of these reports. They're pretty useful. So again, student reports, and it's that first one. And this one is really nice because it kind of gives you a snapshot of how your students are doing on Quill. So right now I'm in my Pre-AP English 1 class, and I'm looking at all my students, and each of these icons is for a different tool on Quill and a different activity. So for example, Margaret has completed 3 activities. These have been assigned but not yet completed, so they're gray. And if I hover over, I can see how she has done. So there's the skill survey. I can also see how she's done on that ice storm activity. And if students have taken the activity more than once, I will also see a second score here. And then, so for example, Teolinda here, you can see has taken something twice. That's what that little 2 means. She has repeated that skill survey. So this is a nice report to just get a snapshot again of how your students are doing with various activities. And the color, by the way, also indicates that proficiency. So again, the yellow, the red, yellow, green to indicate their proficiency on that activity. So that's the activity scores report. I'm sorry, the activity summary report. And again, this little cheat sheet will tell you other reports that you can go to. So for example, you want to see where low scoring students are struggling, the activity analysis might be the place to go. So just to go back to our Teacher Center, and Keith, I see your comment. You are in Saudi Arabia. Wow. And Quill is helping them with English as a second language. I'm so happy to hear that. That is wonderful.